In Japan, university life is often called the summer vacation of life. It's the very first taste of freedom for young people who have spent years grinding for entrance exams. For a while, I was right there, in the middle of that peaceful summer. Back in high school, I didn't have anything in particular I wanted to study. In an atmosphere where going to university is simply the default, I did what most students do. I choose a university based solely on my test score, basically by process of elimination. At the mid-tier university I entered, I was finally released from the strict constraints of high school. A vast scene of freedom spread out before me. Easy classes, no assignments, whether I showed up or not, was entirely up to me. But in the second half of my sophomore year, I was on the brink of failing my credit. When I finally sat down to face my major, I realized a shocking fact. The reason these classes are easy is not because the content is simple. It's because the complex, essential part have been hidden. It's been optimized so that students won't struggle. Later, when I went on to a top-tier Japanese graduate school, I saw a world that was the complete opposite. What I found there were meticulous lectures, fierce research, and a clear, undeniable advantage. Welcome to Shimba channel. I'm Japanese and I share insights into Japanese culture and systems. Today, I'm going to talk about these two worlds I've experienced within the Japanese education system. In this video, I'll be explaining the unbridgeable gap between the mid-tier Japanese university and the top-tier Japanese graduate school. By the end of this video, you will understand how the Japanese ranking system creates such a massive difference in the quality of education. Most importantly, you will see how your place in this hierarchy determines your career advantage in Japan. So, let's start by looking back at the beginning of my summer vacation. My grueling high school days in Japan. Section 1. Hensachi, the Yardstick of our youth. For many Japanese high school students preparing for university, escaping the universal yardstick known as Hensachi, or deviation score, is harder than you can imagine. I attended what we call a self-proclaimed elite school. In these schools, the top priority isn't the students' interests or their future dreams. Instead, the school's absolute focus is how many students can we get into high-ranking university? Everything else is secondary. Living in that atmosphere as a senior, my life was intense. I had classes 6 days a week, plus supplementary lectures on Sundays. On weekdays, it was normal for me not to get home until 9 p.m. I've actually made another video going deep into the Hensachi system and my brutal high school life, so definitely check that out if you're curious. But here's the thing, this isn't just my story. This is the reality for countless Japanese students preparing for exams. They go to juku or yobiko, cram schools, after their regular classes and spend their nights studying until they're exhausted. Yet, despite spending all this time and energy, I wonder, how many students actually understand what they truly want to learn? Trapped between the social pressure that going to university is a must, and restrictions like families, finances, or social status. The goal simply becomes entering the highest ranked university possible. I was no different. At the time, I blindly believed that a university major would just be an extension of high school subject. That's why I chose my major without any deep thought. It was just a simple extension of a subject I liked. Section 2. Leisure Land, the Cost of Peace. After being released from that overcrowded high school schedule, university life was incredibly peaceful. But honestly, rather than enjoying the freedom, I remember feeling a lingering sense of unease during those first few weeks. I kept wondering, is it really okay for life to be this easy? The first thing that shocked me was that I could decide my entire schedule. I could intentionally skip morning classes, prioritize easy subjects with few assignments, or even create days with no classes at all. I could customize my life however I wanted. Once the semester actually started, I realized that many professors didn't even take attendance. Whether I went to the classroom or not was entirely up to me. It felt like a total contrast to my high school days when I was chained to my desk until 9 p.m. Now, I was looking at a completely blank slate. Over time, that initial confusion turned into habit, and I don't think I'm the only one who felt this way. Of course, this isn't true for every university or every student, but in Japan, universities are often marked as leisure land or the summer vacation of life. For many, getting into the university is the finish line, so they burn out the moment they arrive. And it's the fact that the system often tolerates this. As long as you manage the bare minimum of attendance and pass basic exam, you get your ticket to graduate. Around me, this lifestyle was normal. There were students who slept through every single lecture, only showing up for exams they already had the answers to. Others made their social clubs and part-time jobs the center of their lives, and were rarely seen on campus. Since it was still possible to earn credit in this environment, this became my normal too. I began to prioritize the fun of hanging out with friends and the quick cash from my job over my lectures. But the peace of this comfortable stagnation was slowly building up. By the end of my second year, I realized I was on the verge of failing several of my major subjects. If I keep this up, I might not even graduate. Pushed by that desperate sense of crisis, I finally began to face my major, the very thing I had been avoiding for so long time. Section 3. The Laundering Strategy, a Second Chance. Faced with the risk of failing, I desperately began diving into my textbooks. And that was when I came face to face with a shocking reality. The lectures I had been taking were only scratching the very surface of the subject. At my mid-tier university, the lectures had been carefully optimized to make sure students wouldn't get frustrated or drop out. Any complex discussions or deep theories had been systematically removed. But I realized that the real beauty of the subject was hidden exactly in those difficult parts that had been stripped away. When I discovered this, a genuine joy of learning was born inside me. something I had never experienced during my high school grind. From that point on, I stopped relying on university lectures. I began to teach myself, diving deep into my major, and made a firm decision. I was going to aim for one of the top-tier graduate schools in Japan. Let me explain a bit about how graduate school entrance exams, known as inshi, work in Japan. Unlike the broad undergraduate exams that require 5 or 7 different subjects, the inshi usually focuses on 3 things: your specific major, English, and an interview. Even for internal students, there's no free pass. You have to take the same exam as outsiders and earn a passing score. In other words, the inshi is a second chance. It's an opportunity to be judged not by your general test scores from when you were 18, but by how much expertise you actually have right now. However, in Japan, moving from a lower-ranked university to a top-tier graduate school is sometimes marked as Gakureki Laundering or academic laundering, referencing money laundering. There is a cynical view that this is just a way to rewrite your pedigree, while avoiding the brutal competition of undergraduate entrance exams. The truth is, even at top-tier universities, some newly established departments or less popular majors are relatively easier to get into. This is why some look at it with a cold gaze, seeing it as a shortcut to a prestigious title. But I didn't care. I spent my third and fourth years obsessed with my studies, and by the time I graduated, I had secured a spot at a top-tier national graduate school, a place that my high school self could never have even imagined. But I had no idea that the world I was about to enter would completely rewrite my understanding of education. Section 4. The Hierarchy's Passport. 2 Different Worlds. I entered graduate school with high expectations, but also with the deep anxiety of an outsider. Even though it shared the same name, university, the rules of this place were completely different from anything I had ever known. The first thing that overwhelmed me was the difference in density. There was absolutely no optimization for students here. The lectures were incredibly meticulous, and grades were strictly enforced based on your performance. I was also stunned by the depth of the faculty. Fields of study that didn't even have a single professor at my previous university were treated as a given here. I was surrounded by famous professors whose names I had seen in research papers, and the sheer variety of specialized courses was overwhelming. While there were still a few students sleeping in class, the quality of information and the rigor of the system were incomparable to my old environment. Daily life in the lab was another series of shocks. My peers were incredibly driven. They didn't wait for instructions. They searched for papers, formulated their own questions, and they advanced their research independently. Professors would join these intense discussions, pushing the complexity even further. With many international students around, I was exposed to diverse perspectives daily. It wasn't just a place to memorize knowledge. It was a system designed to actively generate new knowledge. Even students who weren't particularly academic were extremely calculated about their careers. Doing summer internships was a given culture, and they were all at prestigious household name companies. Coming from a university where no one even thought about internships, this level of awareness was staggering. Seeing where the seniors were getting hired made it clear. This environment provided a powerful passport to the elite corporate world. Statistics back this up. If you look at the new hires of Japan's most famous companies, the list is dominated by top-tier national and private universities. The reality is that in many popular companies, a massive portion of hires comes from just a handful of specific schools. This isn't just a coincidence, it's a systemic gap. This brings me to what I believe is the true identity of the environment in Japan's academic hierarchy. People often say it's just a difference in native ability, but I felt that the difference in the corrective standard was far more significant. In a top-tier environment, gaining high expertise or securing an elite internship isn't special. It's just the standard view of the world. There's a powerful group pressure where you feel like you'll be left behind if you don't do what everyone else is doing. I believe this corrective pressure strictly dictates individual behavior, forces your abilities upward, and ultimately creates that unbridgeable gap. However, this environmental force isn't positive for everyone. The combination of relentless assignments, high-level debates, and high-stakes job hunting is incredibly hard. I saw many students pushed to their mental limits. Some of my own peers and seniors couldn't handle the pressure of research or the constant comparison with others, and were forced to take leave of absence due to mental health struggles. If my previous university created a sense of lethargy through its relaxed pace, this place was a world of friction and wear, caused by excessive expectations and competition. A top-tier environment gives you a powerful passport for future, but it comes with the harsh reality that you must constantly adapt to its relentless standards. Section 5. Beyond the ranking, choosing your own world. As I mentioned at the beginning, university life in Japan is sometimes described as the summer vacation of life. While that may be true in some ways, looking at the other side reveals a world of intense competition and a high-pressure environment where failure is not an option. Reflecting on my own experience, my university years were peaceful and fun, but also cruelly demanding. Whether it was the relaxed pace of a mid-tier school or the fierce training at a top-tier graduate school, both offered experiences that I could only find there. I can't say that one is definitively right and the other is wrong. In Japan, there is a culture where having a period of doing nothing is socially difficult to accept. In that sense, choosing to spend a few years at a relaxed university can actually be a strategic choice. It allows you to secure true free time for yourself while maintaining the social status of being a student. On the other hand, if your goal is to maximize your career and human capital as quickly as possible, a top-tier environment provides the resources and the standards necessary to push you to that level. The most important thing is not simply aiming for a good university, because society tells you to. It's about identifying what your own purpose is. Are you looking for summer vacation to find yourself? Or are you looking for the friction and the passport that a top-tier environment provides. The Japanese university system offers more options than we might realize. Understanding these mechanisms and proactively choosing the place that's right for you, that is the key to living a life you can be satisfied with in this society. What was your university life like in your country? Was it a relaxed time for exploration or a fierce, high-pressure competition? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments. Thank you for watching today's video. I'll be continuing to deep dive into Japanese culture and systems from my perspective. If there's anything specific you want to know about Japan, or any system you are curious about, please let me know. I really appreciate hearing your perspective. Your feedback really helps me improve, not only in making videos, but also in my English journey. See you in the next one.